Hey Blue Jays, it's Mrs. Self again. This time, part three of our series on what to note. We've talked a lot about using two-column notes to help us organize information, but sometimes it's hard to know what to actually put in those notes. In part one of our series, we learned the why behind our note-taking strategy, really activating our brain, staying active in the process of reading. In part two, we looked at the three different types of text that we read: literary, informational, and poetry. And now here in part three, we're going to take a deeper look at what we actually note or look for when we're reading those type of texts. So let's start with literary text. In literary text, we look for literary elements, which include characters, their names, descriptions, how they're feeling. We look for the setting, the when and where, and any description that goes along with that. We'll look for the big events that come along, including the conflict or the problem in the story. We look at how the character changes or that development throughout the plot of the story, how the problem is solved. We look for the perspective of the character, again, their thoughts and feelings. What point of view is it being told from? Is it first person, someone actually in the story? Is it third person, someone outside of the story that has a bird's eye view, if you will, of the characters and their thoughts and feelings and actions throughout? And then we look at the theme, which is that final piece. How can we take all of our literary elements and put it together to determine the lesson the author is trying to show us throughout the story? For informational text or nonfiction, we're looking at the structure. Compare, contrast, cause and effect, chronological order, problem solution, or even description are some of the common structures that we look at. And it really gives us the reason the author wrote this text to help us understand the author's purpose and their thoughts or feelings, or also known as perspective, on the topic. Text features give us clues into what it is the author is trying to get us to understand or help us understand about the topic. We look for those key details, the most important pieces of information. And when we can pull all of those things together, we can determine the central idea or what the paragraph, section, or the entire text is mostly about. Finally, with poetry. In poetry, we're looking at the type of poem. We talked about 4 different types we learned in 3rd grade with haiku, limerick, free verse, and rhyme verse briefly in part 2. In middle school, we bring in 2 other styles with sonnet and villanelle as well. We look at the stanzas. We look at rhyme scheme. Really trying to understand what the poem is about, what the author is trying to get us to understand. And of course, through all of this, we have vocabulary, figurative language, prefixes, suffixes, and root words, using context clues to figure out the meaning of words, intertwined throughout every type of text we read. I hope this has been helpful, Blue Jays, and what we can take note of while we're reading. Have a great day.